So this is the Finaliser REQ, Reverb, Equalize and Enhance from AJH Synth. Now the intention of this module is to add that final splash, colour, life, richness and depth that a bit of effect and equalizer can. And we're used to this in the kind of mixer world or production environments where we're probably going to have some reverb to mix different elements into and some EQ on mixer channels or software channels. We can go mono in, which will go through the equalizer on the left input and the enhancer, and then to this reverb effect, which has a spring, ambient, room, hall, small concert hall, large concert hall, reverse, which is really cool, and a fixed delay. We can also go right in and just take a right out and avoid the EQ and enhancer, or we can go true stereo in and true stereo out. Now the one kind of restriction here is that the EQ and the enhancer are mono. So we can't do stereo EQ over a stereo mix and stereo out. You're kind of restricted if you want to do stereo in and out to just this reverb effect. But it's still great at adding depth and colour and that bit of splash and life, especially when you CV the reverb as well. But the beauty of it for me, and I imagine this is very much the intention for most users and probably AJH Synth as well, is to take a mono input and get a stereo output. Most modular patches are mono, mine included, and I love running a synth line in, going through the EQ and enhancer. We could drive this really hard, and I'll do that in the video. We're getting this pumping and throbbing, using it as a real characterful distortion, which is probably not meant to happen, but sounds amazing. And that only happens on really extreme settings, but it's always good to push things and see where they go. So mono in, through the EQ, through the enhancer, and then a stereo reverb out of this is kind of my favourite use, if you like. But we will go through mono use, CV in the reverb, the different EQ, and this is parametric in that we can move the frequencies around, stereo in, stereo out, and mono in and stereo out. So let's get into some patches. So as this is called a finalizer, I thought I'd run it first over a full patch, the final thing. We have some drums and a synth riff. Let's just listen to that for a second. And it's coming into the Finaliser REQ, fully wet. This isn't on a send, this is all coming through this in mono to the left input, and then we're coming back out and this is what I'm recording. So first, let's turn off the enhancer and the EQ. We'll have a quick look at the effects. So here's the spring. Now we get the little peak warning light, but in practice, I've found you can get away with a lot of this. There's no kind of nasty clipping as soon as the LED comes on. So that's the spring. Next setting is ambient or AMB. You can hear it react differently around that snare. RM, which is room. LHA, which is large hall. And obviously running these fully wet over a full mix isn't the kind of use case, but just a little bit of this, especially for those listening in headphones or decent speakers, it just adds a depth to the back of this whole patch. SCH, small concert hall. again, just a bit of it. That's a really nice depth. LCH, large concert hall. And let's just pull our input and listen to the trail or decay. Reverse. You can really hear it pump against that snare. And the just preset delay time. Now let's check out the enhancer. And here's the high enhancement. Plenty of juice on that if you want it. And here's the low enhancement. Again, it goes extreme as you want, but just a little bit of it in this particular use over a full mix. A little bit of high and some lows really works well. Get rid of that and check out the EQ. I'm going to isolate the bands. Here's the low. Low mid. High mids. And the high, which can be a 2K or 5K shelf. I should say the low end can be a shelf. Or just a typical bell curve EQ. Let's get a rough EQ mix. So to me, there's too much of that kind of slap with a low frequency up. A couple of dBs low down's working well. Let's try and remove some of that lower mid thump, just clean the mix up a little bit. It's around there, so we'll cut a little bit. If I was pretending to be in Metallica, I could just completely cut it. But we like our mids. Let's try and find that kind of crack in the snare on the high mid. So about there's catching the transient in the kick and the snare. Have a bit of that, a little bit of top boost. Now let's bring the enhancer back. So the EQ sounds great, the enhancer sounds great, and a couple of nice things you can do with this, almost DJ style performance tricks. If we were to bring up the reverb and sweep the low end out, we can pull the reverb back and take the EQ out for a little bit of a kind of build and transition the performance. Let's try that out. Just a little way of building up some tension and release. You can of course then put the low back where it is, little mini effects fill, and flick the EQ back on without anyone noticing. Let's try that on the reverse. It works great. Now, we've had this triangle LFO that you can see on the data. We can put that into the reverb CV, and this becomes an attenuator for the reverb level. And again, it just becomes something that we can pull and push and modulate in and out. It's another layer of depth and dimension to this patch. Just going to play with the rate of this LFO. So that's the Finaliser REQ over a whole mix. Let's check out some other patches. So here we have the Finaliser REQ just on this synth line. The EQ is off, the enhancer is off, and the reverb is off. Let's just listen to the dry input sound. And for those that like watching waveforms, the output of this is that line up top. Now let's check out the effects over this synth line. So here's the spring setting on the reverb. Lovely and reflective. Ambience. A bit brighter, doesn't carry the weight as much in the low end. Room. Large hall. Got that lovely modulated top end. Small concert hall. Large concert hall, the biggest of all the reverbs. Reverse. Very modulated, almost metallic swelling in and out around that synth, and the fixed delay. Now I'm going to stick with a spring. I'm already driving this input fairly hard because I want to really hit this and show how much kind of drive and level is on tap. Now my recording chain has plenty of headroom, so any drive or clipping is going to be from this module. It's not going to do anything downstream. So let's really crank the enhancer. We can see that squared off wave on that right output that we're not using. Let's add some verb. Completely transforms the character. Let's drive the high enhancer. And both. Let's play around with the EQ. We'll start off quite nicely and conservatively. And then let's drive this up. Now it's not for everything, but I like that drive. And with the enhancer up full as well. good sound. Now, one thing I have is an envelope that's been inverted from this patch. So by putting that into the Reverb CV, and let's go back to the spring, we can get this almost like sidechain compression feel where the standard envelope is opening my filters and VCAs in the patch, and the inverted envelope is going to swell in the reverb within the gaps, giving this impression of this compression. So there we have it, filth, compression, and also the subtleties and how nice that EQ and reverb sounds on synth lines. So with this patch, I wanted to show off the mono in to stereo out functions. Now going into the left mono input, we'll first travel through the EQ and enhancer before this same signal goes into the reverb chip and we get a stereo output. We've been mono so far in the video. If we want to use left and right in, then the EQ and the enhancer won't be on both sides. That's just on the left side. The module would be twice the size if it was a stereo EQ, stereo enhancer, and stereo verb. But the addition of going mono to stereo, or just going stereo and just having this nice splash of effect over works really well. So here's my dry input sound with no EQ, no enhancer, and the reverb down. Let's check out these reverbs in stereo. Make sure you're listening in headphones or speakers so you can hear this separation between the two outputs. So a bit of enhancer. And let's just flick around the modes. So delay. Reverse. Let's EQ it before we hit that reverse. Quite interesting. Large concert hall. And there's a nice width on this one. Small concert hall. Nice pre-delay and reflections. Large hall. Again with some enhancer. Room. Ambient and spring. So as the name suggests, it's great as a finalizer, with in this patch mono in, stereo out from the reverb, but going EQ and enhancer in mono before that stereo reverb effect. So for this final patch, we're going to go for a true stereo in and true stereo out. Let's just listen to that input. Notice the open offbeat hi-hat is hard panned and the closed hi-hat is hard panned the other way, and we have this LFO panning a more metallic percussion sound across the beat. Now the restriction of going stereo in is that we lose the function of the EQ and the enhancer. It's still there, but this is mono and on this left side. So if I was to turn the EQ on, it's left side only. Now, this module's packed of all this kind of AJH analog goodness that we know from their other modules, and it would be a much bigger module should it be a true stereo EQ. So without using the equalizer and the enhancer, Let's use the reverb to add some splash, colour and life and depth to this beat. Let's just check out each mode first. Patch that I really love in this drum system is to take a sequence and sequence the reverb depth alongside the drums. Let's try a few of the modes with that CV. Thanks for checking out this Finaliser REQ video. Be sure to go check out the other AJH Synth videos on my channel, all of which I will link below. Hit like, subscribe and comment. And if you want extra content and want to be extra cool, go support me on patreon.com/DivKid. All linked below. Those guys get some extra stuff that I don't put on this channel. Cheers for watching.